So Victor Wembanyama just had the best game of his NBA career. 38 points against Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. And forget Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. These guys, like, they were just... no one can guard Victor. Like, if you're trying to guard Victor, you just sometimes have to just stand there and look at him in awe at what he does. And I've always said that about guarding Kevin Durant. Like, you don't really stop Kevin Durant. Like, he's either making or missing the shot. You're not actually stopping him. So the whole thing with Kevin Durant is just make it as difficult as possible, and that's literally how you have to defend Victor. Victor doesn't have to touch a Kevin Durant, doesn't have the mid-range game of Kevin Durant, and if he ends up as a top 20 player of all time, trust me, he's had a good career. But he's just looking like something we've never seen before. And when I say something we've never seen before, and I mean it, Shaq. I mean it, Shaq. I mean it, all of you guys that said this guy was Bol Bol. I mean it. And everyone's saying the only difference between him and Bol Bol is the fact that Bol Bol didn't really try. I'm like, well, that's a big difference, isn't it? That's literally like saying the difference between, I don't know, let me just think of a scoring wing. The difference between like LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Michael Beasley is the fact that Kevin Durant tried harder. Like, that was it. At 18 years old, Michael Beasley was equally as good as Kevin Durant. It's true. It is the truth. The big difference between those two guys is the fact that Kevin Durant worked a lot harder in his game than Michael Beasley did. But nobody's out here saying, oh, we've seen Kevin Durant before, he's Michael Beasley. And that's the same logic as saying, we've seen Victor Wembanyama before, he's Bol Bol. Like, Bol Bol, not only that, he's like 4.5 inches shorter than Victor Wembanyama. Actually, that's completely wrong. What's Bol Bol? 7'2"? Victor's about 7'4"-ish. So he's 2 inches shorter wingspan, skinnier than Victor Wembanyama, worse. You know what? I actually think Bol Bol has got a better handle than Victor Wembanyama, but doesn't pull up as well from mid, doesn't try on defense, whereas Wemby might be the best defensive player in the NBA right now. He might be the best defensive player when it's all said and done ever. Like, that's not a crazy statement to make. Bol Bol doesn't play defense. Victor rebounds better, Victor's more aggressive, Victor's stronger, Victor takes care of his body more, Victor shoots probably not as good as Bol Bol, but in literally everything, he's better at everything. Like, even size-wise, he's bigger. Like, Bol Bol is just a skinny guy with a little bit of skill. You might be saying, oh, like, Bol Bol just never got his opportunity. What are you talking about, never got his opportunity? The man was drafted in the 40s. If people thought Bol Bol was going to be good, he would not have been drafted in the 40s. He wouldn't have gone to the second round. Like, there were so many bums taken before him in that draft. Realistically, in a redraft, he probably goes like in the 20s, but still. He went in the 40s. He went to Miami, who then traded him to Denver, who didn't want him, and traded him to Orlando, who didn't want him. And then he went to Phoenix, and he sat on the bench yesterday, watching the game, 0 minutes, as Victor Wembanyama proceeds to drop 38 points on Kevin Durant. So can we just stop this lazy comparison? Because we've never seen anything like Victor Wembanyama before. And that's not me like hyping up saying he's going to be the GOAT. I'm saying there's no point comparing him to anybody. Because this is a guy that we haven't seen. And you know what the best comparison that I'm going to give to a Victor Wembanyama, and not in how they play, in just what they did for the game of basketball, is Shaquille O'Neal. Remember in the 90s? Like, I've looked back a lot of what people said about Shaq when he first came into the league. And everyone, like, just watching in awe of this kid and being like, what are we going to do? Is there any way of stopping him? What are we meant to do? Even in the 2000s, when any contender literally were like, we just have to get all these big lumps were being overpaid. Big bodies that just could stand there. They were all being overpaid because every single contender needed to compete with Shaq. And I think that's what's going to happen very soon. Like with Victor Wembanyama. Lengthy 7-foot-tall guys who can't really do much but might be able to contain Victor Wembanyama a little bit might suddenly start getting paid. Or as soon as someone figures out a counter to this guy, those guys are just going to start getting paid. Because again, it's a copycat league. But I genuinely think I think it was rigged that he went to San Antonio, I'm not going to lie, but it's the perfect place for him. He gets to play under Pop. He gets to play for the franchise that Tony Parker played for. Heck, he played for Tony Parker for a year, the team that he owned in France. So we get to play with the Spurs. The guy was almost certainly a Spurs fan growing up because they had Boris Diaw and Tony Parker and Nando De Colo. So he was probably a Spurs fan growing up, and he gets to play under Greg Popovich. And it's not like the Spurs are bad. They started off last season on fire before they started tanking to get Wemby. Like, Vassell can play. Tyus Jones can play. Like, you've got Keldon Johnson who can play. Zach Collins, when he's healthy, can play. And then it's always the Spurs case, just like the Heat in a way. Role players just play better for them. But Victor Wembanyama is a one-of-a-kind player. We're probably never going to see another Victor again. And everybody saying, like, oh, this bad thing is going to happen to him, this bad thing is going to happen to him. Why the hell would we want that to happen? Like, we're literally watching a guy that could end up being the best basketball player to ever live. Like, if he hits, I don't think he's going to be. That's not me saying that. Because the two arguments for the GOAT is the highest peak, and I think it's next to impossible to be as culturally relevant and do what Jordan did in like, from 1990 to 1998. To do what he did in that spell and to take over just the world of sport like he did, I don't think it's possible. And I also don't think it's possible to have the longevity of LeBron James. So I think regardless of where you stand on the LeBron-Jordan debate, I think whether you think it's sustained greatness or highest peak, I don't think Victor can do either of them. But Victor could be in that Shaq conversation where peak for peak, people can argue this guy's the best ever. And the difference between Victor and Shaq is that Victor wants to be the best ever. So I don't know what people are saying, like, oh, he's Bol Bol, or he's gonna get injured, or all this stuff. And it's like, first of all, like, you're not his doctor. I think he's a lot less likely to get injured than a Bol Bol, because if you look at it flexibly, the guy takes care of his body. But we are watching a guy that, when it's all said and done, could be the greatest ever. So can we just stop overthinking things and looking to criticize this guy? Because we are about to, hopefully, be here at the start of witnessing a once, not only in our lifetime, a once in a millennium type player. So lads, let's not go down the Skip Bayless route, and let's just appreciate the fact that we're, touch wood, if he doesn't get injured, we are watching the start of what could be the best player to ever play the sport.